Welcome into the latest episode of Betting the Pitch, the European Soccer Edition. I'm your host, real_G Warner, on Instagram, Patreon, Twitter, and on YouTube. On this episode, we're going to go through Champions League. It is the semifinals, and we got two advanced numbers. We got spreads, totals for this first round. Those are what I'm going to focus, or first leg. Those are what I'm going to focus on. Come up with an ultimate best bet for each of the match days. But specifically on this episode for Tuesday, April 30th, and Wednesday, May 1st, excuse me. And then I will chop that into a reel or YouTube short at the real_G Warner on both those platforms. So if you want to just do a minute and not do 40 or so, then feel free to go that way. It is late night with the real_G Warner, and we are starting now. All lines quoted courtesy of BetOnline, Sportsbetting.ag. They both have links, or I have links listed in the podcast descriptions on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and on Spotify. That'll give you some free money for signing up as a first-time depositor. So go take advantage of that. And without further ado, let's get into it. We'll start on Tuesday, April 30th. Recording this, basically, it's going to turn to Tuesday, April 30th here in Dallas, Texas by the time this match, I think, kicks, or by the time I finish this video. But I'll start with Bayern Munich. They're a home favorite right now to Real Madrid, as I wear a Bayern Munich kit, or at least a t-shirt, that I stumbled into while I was walking through Munich a couple years ago, and literally I can't help myself but buy those sort of things, sadly. But I will admit I'm not a Bayern Munich fan. I probably bet them 5% of how many times I've bet against them, 95%. So that'll be interesting in this matchup. But I'll start with that home game in München in the Allianz Arena. They're not sponsoring me, so I probably shouldn't mention it. But Bayern München to pick them right now with all the juice. Over-unders 2 3/4, juiced almost all the way to over. In terms of where this number has moved, slightly. Bayern have only, I think, increased 2 cents in juice from Pick'em at -122 to this -124 number at BetOnline. And then the total has climbed from 2 3/4 -116 juice to the over to now -118. So it seems like we've had very little movement, but it's been towards the home team and the over. I gotta say, to me, Bayern Munich, it's an amazing tale of two cities, or whatever, tale of two seasons, or tale of two campaigns. Now all of a sudden they want Thomas Tuchel to stick around. There's like a some sort of document going around, getting signatures that has like hundreds of thousands of people that want Thomas Tuchel to stay, as opposed to going to Ralf Rangnick. I can't blame. I would much rather have Thomas Tuchel as my manager than Ralf Rangnick, especially after how horrible he looked in the English Premier League at Manchester United. And then I really haven't been that impressed with what he's done in Austria, but we'll see certainly how that goes in the Euro this summer. But it'll probably take the Bayern Munich job before that ends up happening. So we'll see how that all ends up. But certainly some drama always is the Bayern Munich off the pitch. Thomas Tuchel, great defensive manager. Has never really fit at Bayern Munich because they just want to outscore everyone. I do think he's probably better, and it's part of why they're in the semifinals of the Champions League, coming off knocking out Arsenal, a better team that has been playing much better all season, all that sort of stuff. Maybe they caught Arsenal at a fixture overload, but ultimately Bayern were bowing out of the Bundesliga at that point, falling way behind, allowing Bayer Leverkusen to clinch a league months before Bayern Munich are used to. So that's wild. But this is what Bayern are going for. They rotated a fair amount this weekend. You could say the same for Real Madrid, who pretty much have, after their Clasico win, they basically have La Liga already clinched. I mean, I guess not with the points. They could lose all their matches. Barcelona could win all of them, so it's not completely done yet, but it should be. And the interesting part for me is that Bayern Munich are a pick'em at home. So that's telling me that Bayern are going to be a 3/4 goal underdog or so on the road at Real Madrid. That's what we saw and what they closed on the road at Arsenal in North London. But I got to say, I feel like Arsenal was getting a lot more credit, though Real Madrid certainly have the history in Champions League. I think the club with the most Champions League or Europa Cup or European Cup, whatever championships going back forever. I think, I don't know that the history really matters here necessarily, but it does certainly get me interested on Real Madrid. Currently a pick'em. plus 104 at BetOnline. Could see a quarter of a goal. I don't think that would be impossible by any means, and would kind of be a surprise for me. The juice has certainly been moving that direction, and maybe we see something that's very expensive, like Real Madrid plus one quarter, maybe minus 130 or so using American odds. Um, I guess that's possible. I would think that Real Madrid money would come in and try to grab them getting odds at Pick'em, because worst case scenario, go on the road to Bayern Munchen, you draw, which Real Madrid certainly want to go there and win, but I think they'd be ecstatic to go back to the Bernabeu in Madrid with an even scoreline at the worst case scenario. I think I'm gonna hang out and wait for a quarter of a goal. It's just Bayern Munchen. So what they want to do here, they want to outscore you, but that's also the old way. They want to now kind of outscore you, but still defend, which is, I think, why Thomas Tuchel never really has worked at Bayern Munchen, despite stealing a Bundesliga championship or Meisterschale last season, and then I guess getting to semifinals here. Bayern, and I think Thomas Tuchel has done it a lot with a really bad defense. Eric Dyer, Matthias de Ligt, the monster Kim from Korea, transferred from Napoli after winning the Scudetto last season in Italy. I mean, there are a lot of names, but they're not very good, and they haven't been great defenses really at Bayern in Munich for a long time. Real Madrid, I think, are going to go and play a different style. They're going to allow Bayern Munchen to have the ball. And that's when they've been so dominant in Champions League, because they're great at defending when they have 11 behind the ball or 10 behind the ball with Vinny Jr. up top. Rodrigo potentially as well, maybe 9 behind the ball. But regardless, I think Real Madrid are going to be just primed and ready for a counterattack against Bayern Munchen, because Bayern's center backs are not very fast. Real Madrid have some of the fastest and most talented strikers or wingers or whatever we're calling them at this point in European play, and can't wait till the rich get richer with Kylian Mbappe coming over this summer. I just don't. I mean, to me, I think there's a good chance, and I probably should start talking about the total here, is that I feel like both teams, because Bayern have not really been that aggressive offense that we'd expect from, I don't know, the entire club history under Tuchel. And I feel like we saw them defend a lot against Arsenal on the road in the first leg, and kind of doing a similar thing, kind of wrestling to see who would have to defend against Arsenal, as opposed to being on top of you and just putting everything forward, playing a really high line, because that's been the Bayern past. I don't think that's going to work very well. I will get into two advanced numbers in a second, but I think Real Madrid go on the road. They're very happy with a draw here, which makes the quarter of a goal, I think, that much more valuable than taking the plus odds that are available right now on Pick'em. But I do think that getting Real Madrid any place they play, anywhere they play, road, home, anything like that, besides at Manchester City, where I think they were a full 1-goal underdog in the second leg that they ended up knocking off Manchester City in penalty kicks. But pretty much Real Madrid, there are not many teams that are better than them. That Man City line was pretty wild, seeing them a full goal favorite. Though I think it certainly took in consideration the performance and what happened in the last time the two teams played in a knockout stage of the Champions League. It's just, regardless, I like the Real Madrid side. It's very hard to fade Bayern Munchen at home, but this is not the same Bayern Munchen that is winning Meisterschales by 15 points and is scoring 8 goals. I mean, they do that against the really bad teams in the Bundesliga, but ultimately it's been very hard for Bayern Munchen to get the dominance that they've seen in the past. That's why they are a distant second place finisher and fighting with VfB Stuttgart for that second place position. So I guess along those lines, I think we got a more conservative, more pragmatic Bayern Munchen. That's exactly what Real Madrid have been in the Champions League forever. I don't think that Real Madrid is going to control possession here. If I had to bet, I would bet Bayern Munchen control more than 50% of the ball, or at least they don't lose the possession. It might be 50-50. But I think that lowers Bayern Munchen's scoring ability. it certainly not possessing the ball will will increase the XG allowed and the amount of goals that Real Madrid and goal chances that they will have. But I think Bayern will be pretty conservative here, which I don't know that this line is really considering. I mean, we saw an incredible 6-2 overrun in the quarterfinals of Champions League's over-unders, but it was pretty much a dead under tournament in the knockouts before then, in the round of 16 with more matches. And I feel like there's a lot of unders in the, I guess, group stage play as well. So getting, I mean, a push on three is fairly important here. We could see this one climb to three. I imagine based on just where the juice has been moving, it's been slight, but just in general, you expect very highly watched events to see favorites get bet and overs get bet. So I'm very much looking forward to hanging out in the weeds, sniping this one out when we see three. Though honestly, I feel like we might see three at a reasonable juice come off the line when everyone's betting over on Tuesday, especially after an incredible overrun in the quarterfinals. So I think that puts, in terms of ultimate best bet portions of this program, since I only have one match to discuss on each match day. So I guess that will be how we do it this time. But I'm very interested in both the road team and the under. And I guess for an ultimate best bet at this portion, before I get to the two advanced number, I think I gotta go with that total under 2 3/4 because I'm really waiting to see um a full, I guess, quarter of a goal on Real Madrid. I don't know if that's considered a full quarter of a goal, but whatever. I think everyone understands what I'm saying. But I think that's what I'm really looking for, and that's that quarter of a goal on Real Madrid. So until I get that, I will put the under 2 3/4 on my list, though I'm also waiting for three there as well. Two advanced numbers. So in terms of we have some movement and where it's gone, really not much at all, I guess, to be completely fair and truthful, because fair balance is what I'm looking for. It's probably someone else's tagline, so I probably shouldn't steal it. But anyway, in terms of where this number has gone, so Bayern Munchen opened a plus 150 underdog to get through. $100 will win you 150. And Real Madrid were minus 175 initially, now we're minus 178. Fairly bizarre type of change. Can't really understand or say exactly why that's the case, but regardless, I think for the most part, um, it's probably reason. I feel like there's a huge, and the more I've paid attention to soccer and the more I've watched these two-legged ties, having the second leg at home is a huge advantage because really, if you win the first leg, you're a gigantic favorite. If you draw the first leg, you're still a favorite. And for the most part, the comebacks, those happen in second legs at home, even from being behind in the first leg. I'm going to be looking for more, I think, risk to be taken for at least for my portfolio, to potentially find more teams that are underdogs with the second leg at home, or that are going to potentially need to overturn a deficit, because I just don't necessarily see a lot of these big favorites as just really, I think home field advantage matters more than it matters in more sports than, and certainly mattering in every sport I'm betting nowadays. And I'm trying to incorporate more home advantage into what I'm projecting. But in terms of, I guess the translation from what these odds are, so Bayern Munich a plus 150 underdog gives them about a 40% chance to advance. They need to get a win in the first leg. I think that's a must for them. Based on the current number for Bayern to win this match, it's about the same, 40% or so, a little bit more, 41%, or in between 40 and 41 for Bayern to win this first leg at home based on the three-way spread. Real Madrid closer to 2 to 1 odds, but not all the way there. Draw at 2.5 to 1. If I can simplify these numbers a BetOnline, and it doesn't feel like Bayern Munich are in a good position to get a win at home. Certainly the pick'em suggests that Bayern are weaker on a neutral field, neutral pitch against Real Madrid. And I'm not one to argue about that. So I don't know if there's a lot for me in the to advance number. Certainly, if Real Madrid become an underdog at some point, that would be what I'm looking for. And maybe if they fall behind in this match, maybe that's something I look for live. I don't know if that'll be offered because it's pretty hard to get to advanced numbers really across any of these American sports books for European soccer, unfortunately. But I guess we can all dream, and I guess it's time to move to the Wednesday card. Before we do that, if you're not a member of my Patreon, check it out, patreon.com/real_G Warner. Best spot to get all my plays, leans, write-ups across all sports, doing a lot of soccer, of course, and we'll be doing the Euro and all that sort of stuff moving forward, but also been I think a slower start to the baseball season than I've wanted, but you can get all my baseball plays, leans, write-ups, everything there. including things that are not listed on other sites. But of course, thank you for subscribing to pregame.com and purchasing my picks there. The support over there has been awesome. And I know a bunch of you are with me for the whole season. So I will continue to post there and the soccer stuff as well. Moving to Wednesday, May 1st, I guess we'll move into the next month. Borussia Dortmund, they host PSG, Paris Saint-Germain. And this is probably the weaker side of the bracket. A lot of people were saying the Manchester City Real Madrid winner would win this competition. Long way to go until that occurs, especially I don't think many people were expecting Real Madrid to get through. But we'll start with, I guess, this Wednesday match, and let's go with kind of where the numbers are. So Borussia Dortmund, a pick'em, but in this case, so we had two pick'ems, but in this case, PSG are the minus 124 road favorite. So that's a pretty sizable number there, I gotta say. And I'm not really sure that I necessarily believe in it. It's very tough for PSG to go on the road and win just as Atletico Madrid, who had a goal advantage heading into the second leg at Dortmund, and ultimately were knocked out before even extra time. But PSG, they are in a different position, I guess, than Borussia Dortmund, because PSG basically have Ligue 1 locked up. They're trying to save Kylian Mbappe for Champions League, and they've been resting him quite a bit, while Borussia Dortmund were fighting for a Champions League position. It seems like, they took a pretty big loss after taking a lead at Leipzig this weekend, been controlled pretty much every time they've played Leipzig over the last few seasons after dominating them for a long time. But Dortmund did rotate a significant amount for that match. Grew to a 1-goal underdog on the road, took a lead. I felt great about that +1 bet I made. But I guess I'm glad that I didn't add the under as well, because ultimately that second half and performance was not great. And Borussia Dortmund were working in players that they hadn't been using. And that's kind of the way I would explain that sort of thing. It's certainly something, because most of the time I bet on underdogs against these big teams that are focused on other competitions. But this was a tough one where I bet an underdog on a team focused on Champions League. Wasn't the same type of money-making experience that I was looking forward to having. So in terms of where this number has moved, I don't have it moving anywhere. It's been PSG, a pick'em with all the juice. Over under is 3.25, juice all the way to under, and that has not moved from when I've been looking at it. I think from in terms of how these teams are going to be played, and kind of what I just spoke about teams to advance and taking them and wanting the second leg at home. PSG a pretty gigantic minus 235 favorite here. Dortmund plus 195. That gives them, so about 2-1 odds, gives them about 33% chance, about 1/3 chance to move through. I don't know that PSG are that different than Dortmund, I got to say. The PSG defense, I think there's a lot less said about them, because they're protected by their style of play, which is to possess the ball no matter where they are. Very different than the counterattacking pass of PSG, which to me I think was a better strategy, but hard to argue with making it to the semifinals of the Champions League. But Dortmund, they're different because their defense has big problems. Had big ones this weekend. Have had many across many matches this entire season and going back seasons before this one. But Dortmund in Champions League have been great defensively, and that's I think that's why they got them to the semifinals stage. The crowd's going to be nuts. Having been in the Yellow Wall a couple of years ago, that place is absolutely bonkers. And basically everyone doesn't know anybody literally standing in the Yellow Wall, but they all act like family, and it's going to be a really tough environment for PSG to go get a win. For that reason, I'm very interested in Borussia Dortmund climbing to a quarter-goal underdog. Certainly the juice makes it look like it's headed that direction. I think just based on where things move and favorites and overs, as I said already, that we could see PSG moving to road favorite. And at that point, I think Dortmund will make my card. Since we're not there yet, we don't have that. That's certainly something I will be waiting for. The way I think the match will go is that ultimately, I think PSG go on the road. They're going to possess the ball a lot. It's going to put a ton of pressure on Dortmund, but they're at home and they have a huge crowd base, fan base behind them. And I think that's going to make it really hard for PSG to score. Certainly, Kylian Mbappe can, if he's in any sort of race with Mats Hummels or even Nico Schlotterbeck, I think it's going to be a really tough situation. And we might even see Niklas Sula, though I just don't know that Dortmund are going to potentially play a 3-man back line after playing 4-man basically all season. There's some some suspension issues for Doltzman as well. I think Matson is suspended. But the nice part is that most of these teams at the semifinal level of the Champions League are very deep and have a lot of talented players. So I'm not so concerned about any of that sort of stuff. With that said, I think PSG is probably, I think they are the better team and deserve to be favored, especially with the second leg at home. I'm just not necessarily a believer that they deserve to be favored on the road in Northwest Germany or West Germany against the Schwarzgelben in the Signal Iduna Park because it's a very tough place to play. So for my biggest interest for Wednesday, until I get a quarter of a goal, that's probably my biggest one in general. I do like Doltzman pick 'em at home, and I like the idea of being on a pick 'em at home because if they draw here, that's a great result for PSG, a bad one for Dortmund, but you end up getting your money returned to you in full. So that does interest me. I'm a believer that a push is like a win to me, getting the money that I can risk on something else. Though certainly it's not a great thing for ROIs and those things moving forward. As for the total here, under 3.25 is my interest. I think it's too big. Pretty much anything above 3, I'm leaning under. It's hard to do that. It's hard to get 3.25, let's say, even a very juice one. Worst case scenario, it seems like this might close 3 with maybe even money on the under. Do I feel like based on favorites and overs, we probably stick around this 3.25 level, a very expensive one at that, but maybe we wait and see a better juice at some point before kickoff on Wednesday, May 1st, the year of our Lord 2024. I just think PSG, they're going to possess the ball. Dortmund, they're going to try to get it as much as they can, but I think that's going to be where the front lines of the battle will take place. It's who can have the ball. I think PSG will be happy to do little with it, especially having a second leg at home. Dortmund will probably press a little bit. I mean, pretty much every good team across European soccer has a great counter press or kick in press or whatever you call it. But they will be pressing PSG and trying to take advantage of mistakes. And I think the more that Dortmund are that they don't have the ball, they probably take more chances trying to create turnovers and force PSG into odd man rushes, or I guess it's more of a hockey term. Sorry, I was just watching the stars, but it just seems to me like there's a lot of directions here for this match, not to see as many goals. I also think there's a reversion to the mean coming from how many goals were scored in the last round. So with that, I guess all coming together, probably most interested in the home underdog, but until we get a quarter, I will play under 3.25 as my best bet for Wednesday. So it's time for the ultimate best bet before we get into it. It's probably like the shortest version of any soccer pod I've done ever. But that's what happens when we only have 2 matches to discuss. And I will be doing Europa League, Europa Conference League on Wednesday of this week, as we've now turned into Tuesday. So I guess that technically is tomorrow, but probably late night heading into Thursday morning in the wee hours as well. But we'll be doing that for Europa Conference League, Europa League, and for some reason those get huge amount of hits, and I don't understand why they get more than big soccer discussions for the weekends and things of that nature. But I guess there's a big Europa League fan base that hides in the shadows or something like that. So thank you for all the support. If you're not following me yet on Twitter, make sure you do that. The real_G Warner across all gambling platforms or social media platforms, Instagram, YouTube as well. If you haven't left a 5-star review on Betting the Pitch, the podcast network, that'd be huge on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, or subscribe on YouTube. We've had a bunch of new subscribers lately. I've been meaning to shout those out as well. Might as well just go off a list. If your name is not on this list, that's because you should be subscribing. I had Selling Ninja Motivation. Thank you for your joining. Chance Pa, thank you for coming. Jim Pine as well. Thank you, of course, for all the support. And it's something that I hope to make you all proud when we eventually take this national, nationwide. Well, I guess it's global already because people listen in the various countries. But really appreciate all the support and just keep showing up. And I will keep broadcasting, making episodes, leave 5-star reviews, and I might even have more reasons to jump on more often with some of my good friends and co-hosts. Still haven't done a wrap-up episode for the college basketball season, that Big East Ben and his 11-0 NCAA tournament. Incredible best bet run for him. I don't know what the heck's going on, but I guess he's finally maybe now that he's found not monotony. What is it? Whatever the term is for not cheating on your partner. For some reason that was his thing. But now that he's found this mahogany, whatever the word is, I can't think of it live with the screen counting down on me. But We also, I'm potentially going to put together a show with at A underscore Schnicker, my NFL co-host. After we had a great inaugural season, but we just went to the NFL draft, so we probably should go over some win totals, season over unders, and things of that nature. Now that we have pretty much most of the transactions that have occurred already during and before the draft. So keep an eye out for an NFL episode, trying to get some early season thoughts and maybe even wagers out there. Plus, we have a baseball episode with that A Brooks Bets that'll come out every Tuesday night, and we're recording tomorrow or now today for the Wednesday card. So stay tuned on this channel at Betting the Pitch or the Pitch Betting. You can find on Twitter as well. Plus, Betting the Pitch across Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all that sort of stuff. And that's, I think, all I got to plug. So it's time for the ultimate best bet. So unless I mess anything up, let's get into it. So this is a real underscore G Warner. This is Betting the Pitch, the European Soccer Edition. This is the Champions League semifinal first leg, and semifinals plural. And I'll give you an ultimate best bet. My favorite bet from Tuesday, my favorite bet from Wednesday. Pick one of them, and I'll put it on at the real underscore G Warner on Instagram, Patreon, Twitter, YouTube, everywhere you can find it, and probably throw it on Twitter as well. From Tuesday in the Champions League, my best bet at the moment, recording live, is Real Madrid under 2.75 goals. And on Wednesday, it is another under. It's Borussia Dortmund under 3.25 goals. If you're not following me yet on Patreon, do it. Patreon.com/real_G Warner. Best spot to get all my plays, leans, right up across all sports, soccer, and baseball, going hard right now. For my best bet on this episode, I'm going to go with a Borussia Dortmund under 3.25 goals. I think there's a huge reversion in the mean coming after a 6-2 over-under record in the Champions League quarterfinals. Bet unders. They won't see a lot of goals. And that'll do it for this episode. Thank you for tuning in. I will see you all tomorrow on the baseball episode at MLB with at A Brooks Bets. And then, of course, stay tuned. And if you haven't checked out my Patreon, check it out. Best spot to get all my plays, leans, write-ups, everything I'm doing all day. So you make sure you get the best numbers and the same numbers as I'm locking them in, get notifications, all that sort of stuff. And I will talk to you all very, very soon.